I'm going to talk about the brain and give you a speech on my knowledge of brain and anatomy. Okay, first you want to sit in your seat, relax all your pressure points of your body. Take a deep breath in. Relax the pressure points. Relax the cranial nerves, vagus nerve, brain stem, pons, medulla oblongata. Relax. Now, gather yourself. We got white matter, which is comprised of myelinated neurons. Myelin sheath coats the axon of the white matter. The gray matter of the frontal lobe, occipital lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, cingulate cortex, cingulate gyrus, which is responsible for emotions and it's part of the limbic system. And you relax those neurons. White and gray matter of the frontal, parietal, temporal, occipital, and cingulate gyrus. Relax. Now, it's a part of the brain called the ventricles, and there's 4 or 5 parts of the ventricles of the brain. All it does is simply stabilizes the brain culture. Okay, relax that. The ventricles. Deep breath in. Relax. The pressure points, cranial nerves, frontal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe, and parietal lobe, cingulate cortex. Relax the amygdala. It's a substructure of the limbic system called the amygdala that is responsible for numerous features. Breathe in. Now, we're going to relax the basal ganglia, nucleus accumbens, ventral tegmental area, dopaminergic pathways. Relax. The basal ganglia is a structure of the brain in the central part of the brain that is one of the responsibilities of the basal ganglia brain culture is addictive behavior, possibly. The protein delta phos B in the basal ganglia, when overexpressed, the protein delta phos B can trigger addictive behaviors such as gambling, smoking, overeating, sex, etc. Breathe in. Now, one of my favorite parts of the brain, the hippocampal area. The hippocampus, also part of the limbic system. Hippocampal neurons, hippocampus structure of the brain culture is vital in memory, retrieving information, processing it to the frontal lobe to recite or write information from the hippocampal area. Yeah. The hippocampus also has structures to help it in memory, such as the entorhinal cortex, and there's some other white and gray matter in the hippocampal area that assist in learning and memory. Now you have a somatosensory cortex in the parietal lobe area. Part of the parietal lobe, the somatosensory cortex. It has, I believe, white and gray matter. Sensory neurons comprised of. And I guess the somatosensory cortex plays a role in feeling, smelling, touch. Some believe in the sixth sense. I really don't. Smelling, touch, the senses, sensory. Also, sensory of the body is connected to the somatosensory cortex. Now you have the cerebellum, which sits under the occipital lobe. It is comprised of it is the structure in the brain that has the most neurons. The cerebellum has many tasks, a variety of tasks, including movement, coordination, skilled coordination movements such as playing basketball, football, or walking and dancing. Also, in the brain culture, the cerebellum plays a role in intelligence and information from it for intelligence, or if you're a genius. It connects to the cerebral cortex. It has pathways, neural pathways from the cerebellum to the cerebral cortex. That's where the intelligence factor comes in, the neural pathways that come from the cerebellum to the other structures of the brain, such as cortex, neocortex, frontal lobe. Pretty much all the gray and white matter of the cerebral cortex. Now, another part of the brain that's important is your olfactory bulb and olfactory tract. When you breathe in, you stimulate the neurons of the olfactory bulb. Goes down the olfactory tract. And that processes smell. Aromatherapy, breathing in good food, breathing in fresh air, breathing in your feces in the toilet. Always check your feces in the toilet because if it's not sinking to the bottom of the toilet, then you got something wrong with your stomach. But anyway, back to the brain. The olfactory bulb plays a role in smelling, and also teamed up with the hippocampal area, hippocampus, the olfactory bulb. You can remember what that food smelled like when you was little. Oh, the Thanksgiving turkey smelled good when I was 9 when grandma cooked it. So my olfactory bulb and hippocampus team up, and you can remember what something smelled like from the past. Okay, done with that. If and only if you take deep breaths when working on the brain. Okay, let's talk about another structure of the brain. The temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is very important, processing speech, sound, hearing from the ears, your Wernicke's and Broca's area, which is your speech motor cortex, is in the temporal lobe area. You also have a superior temporal gyrus, where most people with schizophrenia and bipolar, the auditory hallucinations reside in the superior temporal gyrus, which is like on the side of your head, like right here. The superior temporal gyrus is a cortex that's like right up in here where that auditory hallucination resides in people with schizophrenia, right here. So if you have a resting potential in the defected neurons that cause auditory hallucinations, when training your brain, you can control those auditory hallucinations by putting your superior temporal gyrus on their resting potential, the defected neurons that cause the auditory hallucinations. Yep. Okay, now you have a very important brain structure called the corpus callosum. It is a band of nerve fibers that connect the left and the right brain hemisphere. The corpus callosum sits in the middle of the brain. It's a band of nerve fibers, and it shoots signals across the left and right hemisphere of the brain to promote activity in the neurons of the brain. The left and the right brain hemisphere communicate via the corpus callosum, sending messages back and forth across the band of nerve fibers, if and only if conscious. When sleep, it still communicates. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the limbic system. You have the thalamus and hypothalamus. The thalamus can regulate the body's temperature, blood pressure, digestion, food. It's like your brain's secretary, your body's secretary, your thalamus. The hypothalamus is a part of the limbic system as well that plays a role in sex and various features of the body. Hypothalamus and thalamus. Very important parts of the brain. The eyes, your eyes are connected to the occipital lobe, your visual cortex. The occipital lobe in the back of your head, right above the cerebellum, the visual cortex or occipital lobes. When you see something through your eyes, it goes through the optic nerve, connects with neurons and pathways to the occipital lobe. It processes the vision where you can see. If you're blind, then something's wrong with your occipital lobes. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about let me see, another part of the brain that's important. I said amygdala. Your frontal lobe is very important, processing higher functions of the brain, higher thinking, higher consciousness. The frontal lobe is where it's at. That's where everything goes. That's the central processing unit of the brain. If this frontal lobe up in here, frontal lobe does everything for you. It is the last part of your brain to evolve. Your frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until you're about 25 or 24. And premature drug use damages the frontal lobe and adult development of the brain of the frontal lobe. You don't want to play around with that. You damage your frontal lobe, you can forget about it. Okay, let's take a break. Deep breath. Yeah, I'm pretty smart on this stuff, man.